Thank you, recording in progress, lady. My name is Oakwalker, and I am here with my friend Stronghorse, and we are doing another podcast of Earth Medicine for the Soul. And we're very, very happy to have you here if you're listening. And we're just going to kind of move on into a follow-up. Everyone is a follow-up of the last one, it seems. So last time we ended up in discussing patience and how that gets all mixed in with our spiritual journey. So I figure I'd let us know where we're going with that. And I'd like to introduce Stronghorse. How are you doing?
Great, man. Good to see you again. Looking forward to delving into this. Since we're going to talk about patience, let's use a little here, and I'll start it off by saying that I think you and I also talked about emphasizing to everyone that we're not really doing this to try to promote anything or sell anything.
Yeah,
We're kind of looking at this as just a couple of guys who are talking and discussing different topics of spirituality that's meant a lot to them, to see if that'll trigger some other people in terms of being able to find an alternative way of existing on the planet, in a way that's beneficial to the planet, beneficial to them. So you and
yeah.
I talked about bringing that up, so I thought I'd go ahead and put that. I don't know, is that a disclaimer or what?
Well, it is a little bit, but it's also a sort of a clarification as well. We're not really trying to promote either one of our particular traditions, but it would be cool if someone got a little bit of something out of it that helped them clarify their own journey, or got an oh hey out of that, or gosh, I didn't think of it that way. So that's what makes this worthwhile to do, and also in the process. I find myself clarifying my own uh, journey again, going back through the things that gave us, that got us here in the first place. Sometimes I reach a new level of understanding on this thing simply because I have to try to explain things that I've always sort of taken for granted.
Yeah,
Like,
that's a good way of looking at it. I mean, it's interesting to take these topics in a way that allows us to exercise them,
hmm
and through that process of exercising them, we get our own epiphanies that allow people to sort of reach the same kind of recognition or realization as we do in the process. So you had really kind of keyed on a lot of different things, I think, the last time we brought up patience. So why don't you kick it off and tell us a little bit about, how that figures into your life?
Okay, well, the first thing that pops into mind is that there's this shamanism is a kind of a magical process. You really are working with energies and concepts related to what goes around comes around and things like this. And people just love to say, especially skeptical people, who I love skeptics, but people get too skeptical at times. And a lot of them are like, well, there's no such thing as magic. And that's because their idea of what magic is this idea that you can just like, snap your fingers and, rocks float away and, and people get, possessed by your ideas and stuff like this, or whatever it is that you're trying to do with magic. And the first level of patience, the subject of patience that comes to mind is that when I'm testing out these ideas of whether or not my intentions actually have some effect in the universe, it requires patience to wait out the results of that test, right? And even in the
Absolutely.
Wiccans, when they say I'm doing a spell, which is the same thing as saying I am putting my intention out into the universe. They're just trying to crystallize it down into a very, very, very good intention. But they're still talking, like it's going to be 2 weeks. In the next 2 weeks, you're going to see some
Right.
results, right? It's not like
Right.
tomorrow generally. Sometimes it is,
Right.
but very seldom. And so the first idea of patience is that this stuff takes time. When you're trying to manifest something from spirit and into matter, it it takes time. There's a whole lot of processes that have to happen for in order to do that. You can't just and maybe I'm sure there are those who can just snap their fingers and get results, but this isn't the way anybody I know is working with this thing that we call magic or the magical intentions of the universe. It takes time. There are processes. You're literally drawing together all of these esoteric energies and bringing them into a new material reality. And that's something that's got to take patience. And when people want instant results or instant gratification, the way so many of us often want to do, that has a tendency to undermine the exploration of your spiritual journey, right? If you get impatient, you're not going to be there when the test results finally come in.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. And I'd also like to differentiate in my writings, I differentiate between magic, magic, no,
Uh-huh.
magic, and magic, magic. And the difference is magic, the typical sort of stage magic is
Yeah.
illusion.
Yes.
It's traction. See this here, now see it there, and
Right.
it's a trickery,
Legerdemain.
you know.
Yeah.
Yeah. But magic is magic is how the natural world creates.
Exactly.
There's nothing more magical than creating a child.
Right.
You know, that's just, you
Yeah.
know, and so people I think have been Magic's got a bad rap because for the various things that you're saying is that people they led people to expectations that when you're talking about magic, you're talking about somebody who can fool you,
Yeah.
through creating this or doing that or diverting your attention while they're doing this.
Yeah.
But the real magic, the natural world magic, is something that it marches in it to its own tune. And so
Exactly.
patience comes in is you've got to say, all right, I'm not going to lead this. I'm going to follow it.
Hmm.
And so you become someone who waits to be shown what it is you need to know in order to see what it is you need to do.
Yeah.
And you and I talked about this the other day about that's I think this is the crux of the problem and with people's relationship with God. They
Hmm.
they think God should like be there immediately. You know,
Yep.
where are you, God? You should be there doing it like we want you to do. And
Uh,
and God marches at a completely different vibration and gets a speed
yeah.
of light,
Yeah.
that none of us will probably ever completely understand,
Yeah.
but so it's, the patience is you have to, like you said, state your intentions and embed those intentions in alignment with alchemy and the grace of the creator, and then wait for it to show you what it is that you need to do to manifest. Does that ring true to you?
Yeah, it does. I make the same distinctions you do when I write that word magic. Um, and and I think you just hit it right there. Um, so I'm just losing it. You got to pick me up here because I just lost my train of thought.
Well,
Um,
I mean, in terms of framing this in the terms of the grace of the Creator, which is
mhm.
what we're really trying to manifest this through, for the well-being of the plant, the well-being of the
Yeah.
grace of the Creator has its own identity.
Yes.
Okay, it doesn't need our identity. It has its own value. It doesn't
Yeah.
need our, and so I think that's where people get crossways is they tend to try to assign their identity or their personal value to it and then expect it to respond to that.
Yes.
Where instead of, as opposed to saying, all right, let's just accept that maybe it has its own identity and its own value, and let's try to discover that and see what it wants to do.
Right, the discovery, that's the great word there. I think a lot of people want to also absolve themselves from responsibility in saying, well, I hear a lot of this. God didn't give me what I wanted. God didn't, I don't know why I can't get this. I'm trying to manifest this thing and God won't give it to me, as if they have no uh involvement in the process, you know? It's like they don't have to do anything. They're just waiting for this being to download their gifts, you know?
Right.
And
Right.
it just doesn't work that way for me. It is a not only is it a process of discovery, but it's a process of I would I want to say co-discovery, or there's a there's a dance going on, you know,
Right.
whereas I discover, then I know the next thing, and then I discover, and then I, you know, so it's like a little two-step happening all the time. And
Absolutely.
it's continuous too. It's not like you say, oh, bing, I'm done. You're never done. You know, once you achieve a goal, there's there's another one right, you know, right there waiting that also
Absolutely.
has to be done.
Absolutely. And because the process of discovery never ends. Wait,
Yes.
never end. That would be ludicrous. That's our linear thinking. That's our
Oh yeah.
colonialistic indoctrination, there's got to be a beginning and end. No, no, actually there doesn't.
Actually, right.
It doesn't have to be at all. Who made that
Right.
rule? I don't know. You
Uh,
know, but I mean, to further, my latest favorite saying is that picture of the guy. He's leaning against he's got a shovel. And he says, God's in charge. You can't just pray for a hole. I love that.
I do
And the first
too.
hole you dig may not be the right one. You may end up having to dig several holes until you figure it out. So
Yeah,
that's just the way they roll. But I think that I think once you absorb the process and absorb the alchemy into your spirit energy body, then you start developing a sense of knowing, and
yeah,
knowing will allow you to dig the first hole in the first place exactly the way it needs to be. But that doesn't happen like that. It doesn't happen overnight.
yeah.
You know,
It's
you have to train yourself to be able to get to that place where your knowing expands to a place to where you can start co-creating with the universe,
mhm.
and then you're operating with minimum effect, maximum effect with minimum effort.
Yes. I love that one
Sacred
too.
law.
And it's beautiful. Um,
Or so patience for me is trying to arrive at that place.
allowing and the patience are about the same sort of process.
Yeah, it's a training.
Hmm.
There's nobody I know, and you and I have talked about this before, that there's actively involved in any kind of shamanic path that hasn't had years of training.
Right, right. You
Years of
can't.
training.
And I thought I was
No,
just going to be able to go out there and go, hey, I've learned, you know, I've been doing this 2 years now. Let me tell you what I've learned. No,
right.
it
Yeah.
doesn't
That's
work that
the
way.
little bit of knowledge is really dangerous
Really
scenario.
dangerous. And another
Yeah.
thing, so to get to pull out another worm out of the bag, there's this adage that I've often gone by, and I tell people, don't pray for patience. Whatever you do, if you want an easy life, if you want the maximum um, result for the minimum effort, do not be praying for your own patience, because the only way that you're going to get patience is if you're tested and tested and tested and tested. And it will backfire on me every time. It always has. Praying for patience has been a terrible idea. But since you know you're going to be tested for your patience anyway, whether you pray for it or not, what you want to develop is fortitude. and this is what I've been, teaching the boys lately, is that really the way to patience is to develop your internal strength so that you're not so vulnerable and fragile down there while the testing is going on, you know.
That's good. Yeah. The other thought that comes to me while we're talking about this is that all the years that I was taking people and putting them out on ceremony out, in the desert
Uh-huh.
and you know, out in the mountains of Arizona, and then when they'd come back after being out there all night, and doing this process they had to go through, and they'd come back and I would deprogram them, and I'd be like, all right, would you tell me about what you got in this and that? And the
Hmm.
number one thing that violated their ceremony was an expectation.
Yes.
I said, well, you're expecting, you're out there like you deserve this. And so why isn't all these great things happening to you? You're not allowing the process to complete itself and just be the observer.
Yeah.
You set your method, you got the alchemy, you got everything. Now just kick back and wait and watch, see what you're shown, and,
Uh-huh.
and stop waiting for it to show you what it is you think you need to be shown.
Uh-huh. It's like that old adage, people are always out there going, God, I'm talking to you. I'm talking to you. Hey, I'm talking to you. And, never once do you hear him go, I'm listening.
That's right.
Say what?
And I'm talking to you, but you're too busy telling me how you're talking to me to hear what I have to say.
Yeah.
So I think that's really the crux of what we're looking at as we in this new age or this new world that's coming our way is that,
Hmm.
we got to shift away from it's all about me and what I can or can't do, and
Hmm.
watch how awesome I am, and I can do this and do that.
Yeah.
To backing off and just saying, let's turn over the program to somebody bigger than us that knows what they're doing and see what happens.
Yep.
Allow that to happen. You manifest. We'll just do what we need to do to help bring it along.
Yeah.
And
There's a fundamental, I mean, and you're talking about a very, very fundamental shift in that. Um, oh, and here's another bag of worms. Um, so we have become so goal oriented. And when you think about it, all the goal oriented people, the people who are telling you the how to have success in the corporate, on the corporate ladder, all these goal oriented people are talking about magic. They're talking about focus. They're talking about set your intention and focus and don't lose that intention and just keep focusing. And as long as you keep focusing, you will get what you want, and you will, even if it's bad. Right?
right,
Even if it's dragging the world down into
right.
another, you know, way of exploring its own demise, you will get what you want. Sometimes you have to work 10 times harder at it because when you're working against the flow of divinity, you're pushing up the river, right? You're trying to push the
Right.
river, and it's going to take a lot more paddling to get yourself there if that works out as an
And
analogy.
and when you get there, you have to ask yourself, are you really there and was it worth it?
Right? And is this the place you actually wanted to be? Because the flow is going
Yeah.
downstream, right? You're headed for the
Yeah.
ocean if you just let it go and get there.
Here's a real good personal example of something that demonstrates that in glowing color, I think. There's somebody I know who I had a talk, I was counseling with them once, and they were telling me that, they felt like it was their responsibility to make enough money to pull their whole family out of poverty.
Hmm.
And I knew for a fact that there was nobody in their family that had ever put that on them, that had said to them, we expect you to do this, or we expect
Yeah.
to do that, or you should be doing this for us or doing that for us. So this person had made this up
Yeah.
and constructed a whole life around it
Yeah.
and was pissed off about it. You know, absolutely
It's not my
enraged that
fault.
she
I
had,
had to save my family.
yeah, that she had to live her life in this context, And I was thinking, you've made the whole thing up. You're not listening to what the universe is telling you. You're listening to what you're telling yourself, and what you're telling yourself is something you made up,
Hmm. Yeah. It's
and
just,
that's what you're angry about. So that
yeah,
you're not really there. You didn't arrive.
right. It didn't
You
actually,
got to a place that you thought you're supposed to go, and you're not happy.
uh-huh, because you weren't necessarily intended to be there. Um, I don't think that I don't think that we have like a fate. I don't know that I was brought into this life to accomplish a thing, a certain thing. I think that I was brought into this life to row, row, row my boat gently down the stream and see what's down there.
Right,
You
right,
know?
right, right. Well, I think that I think everybody's different on that level.
Yeah.
I think everybody's, you got your old souls and you got your young souls, and this and everything in between, which is billions of souls.
Mm.
So I think there's a massive difference in the things that people are trying to look for and accomplish, in with themselves in the life. But the key is like you said, are you swimming upstream or flowing downstream?
Uh-huh.
I mean, that's
Yeah.
a great metaphor, I think, and that's really that's the crux of, and I think expectations is the engine that drives you upstream, when in fact, if you'll just back off,
Uh-huh.
just say, hey, universe, show me what you want me to do. I mean, and if you feel like sharing your story about time when you sat down and said, all right, you know, better have a good story for me.
Haven't I
I'm
shared
waiting.
that here yet?
Yeah.
That did I share that here? Because that was
No, I don't
basically,
think.
yeah, that was basically my entire epiphany. Is like I just spent, after three marriages and all of that, uh doing what I was told. I started a business and it failed. I started two businesses and they both failed. I worked my ass off. I worked all the overtime. I got my, you know, uh electronic certificate and I did everything that I was supposed to be doing, and my life sucked. It was a complete failure. I had just got kicked out of my house for the third time, and I was a mean person. I didn't like myself. I didn't like my life. And when I sat down there on that day and I just went, I'm done. I'm out. I've had it. I completely and fully surrender because I'm not moving. I will sit here and starve to death and dehydrate myself to death if I don't get some answers. And I was there for 45 minutes. And as soon as I relaxed and just said, "What have you got? Really seriously, what have you got?" It was there. Boom. All of a sudden, I'm surrounded by these light beings in my head, and they're like going, "Well, here's what it is." Basically, it was that you keep waiting for us to give you something to give, but but the way it works is that you give and we replace that and we continue, and you start the process. You have to start the water flowing, turn on the faucet, give, and then you will see that the faucet is comes from a never-ending source. You will never run out of things to give. And that was the whole. I was doing it all backwards. That was the whole thing, is that I kept waiting for the world to give me something worthy to give out. And meanwhile, I was starving because I wasn't giving anything to grease the wheels, if you will. And that
A
just
great story.
kicked the whole thing off.
Yeah, that's a
45
great
minutes
story.
on that. I just watching, it was like watching a movie going, oh, 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 you're what? No, okay. And then I just got up and it was the weirdest thing. I could talk to trees. Just like that. Went
Right.
out and started talking
Now
to
we got
trees,
a whole another set of problems.
right? They're like,
Well,
oh,
and I think that, the crux, I'll say the crux of that is that we don't want people to have to reach rock bottom before they go, all right, show me the way.
yeah, yeah,
And I think by what we're trying to, this is part of our giving process.
mm,
Let's get together, let's share these stories, and if it touches people and allows, it gives them permission to act in a different way, so that they can then start feeling the love of the universe and knowing that
yeah,
they're part of something bigger than them, and that this actually does work.
yeah.
And we're not crazy. We're not making it up, man.
And that the key
We've
is to sit and listen,
done
right?
trial and error. Huh?
And that the key is to sit and listen. Really, that's all
Yeah.
we got to do. Just sit
Yeah.
and listen. Excuse me. We
Yeah.
got
I mean, my, go ahead,
we got the little running
Brian.
out of time thing.
All right. Well, I'm good. Let's pick it up again and the next time, and
Okay.
we'll figure out a good starting space.
Yeah. Um, I'm gonna turn the recording off now and thank you very much. Let me say goodbye to all of our faithful, loyal listeners that must be out there. Of course, they have to be out there. We have to presume they are. And I'm just going to say thank you from Oakwalker.
Thank you from Stronghorse. We'll see you on the flip side.
Okay, and there we go.